Hey people, it's Kola, and this is another reading of John Milton's Paradise Lost. Let's continue where we left off. With wondrous art founded this massy ore, severing each kind, and scummed the bullion dross. A further soon had formed within the ground, a various mould, and from the boiling cells, my strange conveyance filled with each hollow nook, as in an organ from one blast of wind. To many a row of pipes, the soundboard breathes, and on out of the earth a fabric huge rose like an exhalation of the sound of dulcet symphonies and voices sweet, built like a temple where pilasters round were set and Doric pillars overlaid with golden architrave, nor did there want cornice or frieze with bossy sculptures graven. The roof was fretted gold, not Babylon, nor great Al Cairo. Such magnificence equaled in all their glories. To enshrine Belus or Serapis their gods or seat, their kings when Egypt with Assyria strove, in wealth and luxury the ascending pile stood fixed a stately height, and straight the doors, opening their brazen folds, discovered wide within her ample spaces o'er the smooth and level pavement from the arched roof, pendant by subtle magic many a row of starry lamp and blazing crescents fed with naphtha and asphaltus yielded light as from a sky. The hasty multitude admiring entered, and the work some praise, and some the architect his hand was known. In heaven by many a towered structure high, where sceptred angels held their residence, and sat as princes whom the supreme king exalted to such power and gave to rule, each in his hierarchy the orders bright. Nor was his name unheard or adorned in ancient Greece and in Ausonian land. Men called him Mulciber, and how he fell from heaven they fabled, thrown by angry Jove. Sheer o'er the crystal battlements, from morn to noon he fell, from noon to dewy eve, a summer's day, and with the setting sun dropped from the zenith like a falling star. On Lemnos the Aegean isle, thus they relate, everything for he with his rebellious rout fell long before, nor aught availed him now to have built in heaven high towers, nor did he escape by orders engines, but was headlong sent with his industrial crew to build in hell. Meanwhile the winged heralds by command of sovereign power with awful ceremony and trumpets sound throughout the host proclaim a solemn council forthwith to be held at Pandemonium, the high capital of Satan and his peers. Their summons called from every band and squared regiment, by place or choice the worthiest. They anon with hundreds and with thousands trooping came, attended. All acres was thronged, the gates and porches wide, but chief the spacious hall. To like a covered field where champions bold won't ride in armed under the Soldan's chair, fend the best of Paynim chivalry to mortal combat or career with lance. Fixed swarm both on the ground and in the air, brush of the hiss of rustling wings as bees in springtime when the sun with Taurus rides, pour forth with their populous youth about the hive. In clusters they among fresh dews and flowers fly to and fro, or on the smooth plank, the suburb of their straw-built citadel. New rubbed with balm, expatriate and confer, they state affairs, so thick the airy crowd swarmed and was straightened till the signal given. Behold a wonder, they but now who seemed in bigness to superb earth's giant sons, now less than smallest dwarfs in narrow room, though numberless, like that Pygmean race, beyond the Indian mount, or fairy elves, whose midnight revels by a forest side, or fountain some belated peasant sees, or dreams he sees, while overhead the moon sits arbitress and nearest to death, wheels her pale horse, they on the mirth and dance, intent with jocund music charm his ear, at once with joy and his fear his heart bounds. Thus incorporeal spirits to smallest forms reduced their shapes immense and were at large, though without number still amidst the whole of that infernal court, but far within and in their own dimensions like themselves, the great seraphic lords and cherubim, In close recess and secret conclave sat 1,000 demigods on golden seat, frequent and full. After a short silence then, and someone's read, the great consult began. The argument. Book 2. The consultation began. Satan debates whether another battle to be hazarded for the recovery of heaven. Some advise it, others dissuade. A third proposal is preferred. Mentioned before by Satan to search the truth of that prophecy or tradition in heaven concerning another world and another kind of creature equal or not much inferior to themselves. About this time to be created their doubt who shall be sent on this difficult search. Satan, their chief, undertakes alone the voyage, is honored and applauded. The council thus ended. The rest betake them several ways and to several employments, as their inclinations lead them to entertain the time till Satan returns. He passes on his journey to hell gates, finds them shut, and who sat there to guard them, by whom at length they are opened, and discover to him the great gulf between heaven and hell. With what difficulty he passes through, directed by chaos, the power of that place, to the sight of this new world which he sought. High on a throne of royal state, which far outshone the wealth of Ormus and of Ind, or where the gorgeous East with riches hand shows on her kings barbaric pearl and gold. Satan exalted sat, by merit raised to that bad eminence, and from despair, thus high uplifted beyond hope, aspires beyond thus high, insatiate to pursue vain war with heaven, and by success untaught, his proud imaginations thus displayed, power and dominions, deities of heaven, for since no deep within her gulf can hold immortal vigor, though oppressed and fallen. I give not heaven for lost. From this descent, celestial virtues rising will appear, more glorious and more dread than from no fall, and trust themselves to fear no second fate. Me thou just right. The fixed law of heaven did first create your leader, next free choice. What besides in council or in fight have been achieved a merit, yet this loss, thus far at least recovered, have much more, established in a safe and unenvied throne, yielded with full consent the happier state in heaven, with follows dignity, might draw envy from each inferior. But who here will envy whom the highest place exposes? Foremost to stand against the thunderer's aim, your bulwark condemns to greatest share of endless plain. Where there is then no good for which to strive, no strife can grow up there from faction, for none sure will claim in hell precedence none, whose portion is so small. Of present pain, that with ambiguous mind will covet more. With this advantage then to union and firm faith and firm accord, more than can be in heaven we now return, to claim our just inheritance of old. Surer to prosper than in prosperity could have assured us. And by what best way? Whether open war or covert guile, we now debate who can advise may speak. He ceased, and next him Moloch, sceptred king, stood up the strongest and the fiercest spirit, therefore in heaven now fiercer by despair. His just with the eternal to be deemed equal in strength, and rather than be less. Cared not to be at all with that care lost, went all his fear of God or hell or worse. We reck not, in these words thereafter spake, my sentence for open war of wiles, more unexpected, I boast not. Them let those contrive who need, or when they need, not now. For while they sit contriving shall the rest, millions that stand in arms and longing wait, the signals to ascend, sit lingering here. Heaven fugitives, and for their dwelling place, accept this dark opprobrious den of shame. The prison of his tyranny who reigns by our delay. Nor let us rather choose, armed with hell flames and fury all at once, o'er heaven's high towers to force resistless way, turning our tortures into horrid arms against the torturer. When to meet the noise of his almighty engine he shall hear, infernal thunder and full lightning see, black fire and horror shot with equal rage, among his angels and his throne itself, mixed with Tartarian sulphur and strange fire, his own invented torments. But perhaps the way seems difficult and steep to scale, with upright wing against a higher foe. Let such bethink them, if the sleepy drench of that forgetful lake be numb not still, that in our proper motion we ascend up to our native seat. Descent and fall to us is adverse. Who but felt of late when the fierce foe hung on our broken rear, insulting and pursued us through the deep, with what compulsion and laborious flight we sunk first low. The ascent is easy then, the event is feared, should we again provoke our stronger some worse way. His wrath may find to our destruction, if there be in hell. Fear to be worse destroyed, what can be worse than to dwell here, driven out from bliss condemned? This abhorred deep to utter woe, where pain of undistinguishable fire must exercise us without hope of end. The vassals of his anger, when the scourge inexorably in the torturing hour calls us to penance. More destroyed than fuss, we should be quite abolished and expire. What fear we then? What doubt we to incense his utmost ire, which to the height of enraged will either quite consume us and reduce to nothing this essential happy of all, then miserable to have eternal being, or if our substance be indeed divine, and cannot cease to be, we are at worst on this side nothing, and by proof we feel our power insufficient to disturb his heaven, and with perpetual inroads to alarm, though inaccessible his fatal throne, which if not victory is yet revenge. He ended frowning, and his look denounced desperate revenge and battle dangerous to less than gods. On the other side uprose Belial in act more graceful and humane. A fairer person lost not heaven, he seemed, for dignity, composed and high exploit. For all was false and hollow, though his tongue dropped manna, and could make the worse appear. The better reason to perplex and dash, mature his counsel, for his thoughts were low. To vice industrious, but to nobler deeds, timorous and slothful, yet he pleased the ear, and with persuasive accent thus began, and should be much for open war, O peers, as not behind in hate, if what was urged, main reason to persuade immediate war, did not dissuade me most, and seemed to cast ominous conjecture on the whole success. When he who excels in fact of arms, in what he counsels and in what excels, mistrustful grounds his courage on despair, in utter dissolution as the scope of all his aim, after some dire revenge. First what revenge the tower of heaven are filled, with armed watch that render all access impregnable. Oft on the bordering deep, encamp their legions, or with the obscure wing, scout far and wide into the realm of night, scorning surprise. Or could we break our way by force, and at our heels all hell should rise with blackest insurrection, to confound heaven's purest light, yet our great enemy, all incorruptible, would on his throne sit unpolluted, and the ethereal mold, incapable of stain, would soon expel her mischief and purge of the baser fire. Victorious, thus repulsed our final hope, is flat despair. We must exacerbate the almighty victor to spend all his rage, and that must end us, that must be our cure. To be no more, sad cure, for who should lose, though full of pain, this intellectual being? Those thoughts that wander through eternity, to perish rather, swallowed up and lost, in the wide tomb of uncreated night, devoid of sense and motion, and who knows? Let this be good, whether our angry foe can give it, or will ever. How he can is doubtful, that he never will is sure. Will he so wise, let loose at once his ire, be like though impotent or unaware, to give his enemies their wish, and end them in his anger, whom his anger saves to punish endless. Wherefore cease we then, say they who counsel war. We are decreed, reserved and destined to eternal woe. Whatever doing, what can we suffer more, what can we suffer worse? Is this then worst? First sitting, first consulting, first in arms. What when we fled amain, pursued and struck with heaven's afflicting thunder, and besought the deep to shelter us? This hell then seemed a refuge from those wounds, or when we lay, chained on the burning lake. That sure was worse. What if the breath that kindled those grim fires, awaked, should blow them into sevenfold rage, and plunge us in the flames, or from above, should intermitted vengeance arm again his red right hand to plague us? What if all her stores were opened, and this firmament of hell should spout her cataracts of fire, impendent horrors threatening hideous fall, one day upon our heads, while we perhaps designing, exhorting glorious war, caught in a fiery tempest shall be hurled. Each on his rock transfixed, the sport and prey of racking whirlwinds, or forever sunk. Under yon boiling ocean wrapped in chains, there to converse with everlasting groans, unrespited and unpitied, unreprieved. Ages of hopeless end, this would be worse. War therefore, or open or conceal alike, or voice to swathes, for what can force or guile with him, or who deceive his mind, whose eye views all things at one view, he from heaven and his life, all these are motions vain, sees and derides. Not more almighty to resist our might, than wise to frustrate all our plots and wiles. Shall we then live first vile, the race of heaven first trampled, first expelled to suffer here chains and these torments? Better these than worse be my advice, since fate inevitable subdues us in omnipotent degree. The victor's will to suffer us to do, our strength is equal, nor the law unjust that so ordains. This was at first resolved, if we were wise against so great a foe, contending and so doubtful what might fall. I laugh when those who at the spear are bold, and venturous, if that fail them, shrink in fear. What they know must follow to endure, exile or ignominy, or bonds or plain, the sentence of their conqueror. This is now our doom, which if we can sustain and bear, our supreme foe in time may such remit his anger, and perhaps far removed, not mind us, not offending, satisfied with what is punished, whence these raging fires will slacken, if his breath stir not their flames. A purer essence then will overcome their noxious vapor, or inured not feel, or change at length into the place confirmed in temper and in nature will receive. Familiar the fierce heat and void of pain, this horror will grow mild, this darkness light. Besides, what hope the never-ending flight of future days may bring? What chance, what change, worth waiting since our present lot appears? For happy though but ill, for ill not worst, if we procure not to ourselves more woe, first beguile with words closed in reason's garb, counselled ignoble ease and peaceful sloth. Not peace, and after him fuss, Mammon spake. Either to disenthrone the King of heaven, we war if war be best, or to regain our own right lost. Him to unthrone we then may hope, when everlasting fate shall yield to fickle chance and chaos judge the strife. The former vain to hope argues as vain, the latter for what place can be for us within heaven's bound, unless heaven's and Lord supreme be overpowers. Suppose he should relent and publish grace to all on promise made of new sub-rejection. With what eyes would we stand in his presence humble and receive strict laws imposed, to celebrate his throne with warbled hymns, and to his Godhead sing forced hallelujahs, while he lordly sits our envied sovereign. His altar breathes ambrosial odors and ambrosial flowers, our servile offerings. This must be our task in heaven, this our delight, how wearisome. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. That's another reading by Kola. So please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Tune in for the next time.